Or Khan, Shalom, Shalom, Israel, Shalom to the Torah tribes, Yasharala, giving the chorus, all learn, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Mahashiach, Malak Yahweh Shah. All right, that's all praises, honor, and glorification unto the Most High God Yahweh, in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shah. All right, this is Brother Yasharala coming back to y'all with yet another video through the Spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Mahashiach, Yahweh Shah. All right, and I'm gonna get straight into this, right? I'm gonna get straight into this because I'm gonna be doing this solo, right? Until a brother joins in. But anywho, right? All through the Spirit power, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh, Lord willing, you're having a good Sabbath, all right? And if not, still Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Barakatham, all right? To the 12 tribes, of course, right? To the nation of Israel, right? It's better you be keeping the Sabbath than just to say to hell with it, It's better that you're keeping the Sabbath, right? Even if maybe you're not keeping it Friday, sundown, Saturday, sundown. Hey, it's better for you to keep the Sabbath, right? According to the lunar calendar, whatever, than to not keep it at all and say that the law is done away with. You see that? So all praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. All right, but let's get straight into this. All right, let's get straight into this. We'll be going into Deuteronomy chapter 20. All right, the law. We have to be getting into the law as much as we have to get into prophecy, right? As much as we have to be getting into prophecy, getting into the wisdom, right? Going into through the Proverbs, the Psalms, right? As much as we have to be going through the Acts of the Apostles to see what the Lord is going to bring forth on the earth as well. Because remember, the Lord said that that which had been is now, and that which is to be has already been done. And the Most High God required that which is past. It's Ecclesiastes 3:15, right? If I'm not mistaken. So, roughly paraphrase. So, of course, right, as much as we have to be reading the Gospels, right, knowing about the acts of Yahweh Shah and the sayings of Yahweh Shah and how he conducted himself, and we conducting ourselves in like manner, as much as we have to be reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, right? As much as we have to be reading the epistles, the Pauline epistles, right? The Catholic epistles, which are also known as the general epistles, right? Like James, right? 1 Peter, 2 Peter, even Colossians, Ephesians. It's a lot of good stuff in there. As much as we have to be studying that, we also have to be studying the law, right? Let's go to the book. Let's get the classic. Let's go to Sirach, right? Chapter 39 and verse 1. Let's go to Sirach chapter 39 and verse 1. It says what? Right out of the Apocrypha, it says, "But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof." So we have to give our mind to the law of the Most High. People, they give their mind to math. They give their mind onto their school work. People give their mind onto many, many different things, right? They give their mind onto football, That's all they're thinking about, football, right? The positions, right? How people, how to score a goal, how to do all this type of stuff, right? People give their mind to sports, and that's vanity, But we have to give our mind to the law of the Most High, right? We should be lawyers in this thing. Remember, the original definition of a lawyer is someone that's basically a doctor in the law, somebody that knows the law like the back of their hand, And Paul, he was also a lawyer, in that sense. Paul, he knew the law because he was a Pharisee, right? But it says what? "But he that giveth his mind to the law of the Most High and is occupied in the meditation thereof will seek out the wisdom of all the ancient and be occupied in prophecies." All right. So as much as we have to be occupied in prophecy, because we're living in the end days, there's no use in us studying prophecy if we're not also studying the law. Because guess what? Knowing the prophecies, the breakdowns, that's not really what's going to get us out of here. You have to be keeping the law. We have to be keeping the laws, right? That is the milk. That's the foundation right there. Keeping the laws and having faith in Mahashiach Yahweh Shah, that is the foundation right there. If we're not doing that, then we're off, right? So we have to be keeping the laws, of course, to the best of our ability, right, in this captivity. But how can we keep the law if we don't know it, right? And the law, it goes into all different types of stuff. You can find prophecy in the law. You can find, of course, the law, statutes, and commandments, the judgments. But guess what? The law is also spiritual. So when we study the law, we're not only studying, how to keep certain commandments and the judgments and what to do. Hey, the law is very, very spiritual. Let's go to Romans chapter 7. Then we're going to hop into it, right, through the Spirit. Let's go to Romans chapter 7. The law is spiritual, right? This is the book of Romans chapter 7, all right? Let's go to Romans chapter 7 and verse 14. It says, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. So we know that the law is spiritual, right? That's what Paul said. Everything that's found in the law is spiritual as well. It has a spiritual application to it, right? And that's the deeper things of the law, right? But let's just go into it, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20. Remember, Deuteronomy means second law. All right, Deuteronomy means second law. All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse number 1. And it reads, when thou goest forth, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots and a people more than thou, right? In fact, I might just share my screen, right? Let's just share my screen. All right, let's break this down, man, through the Spirit. Let's go to not First Kings. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20, right? Deuteronomy chapter 20. As you can see right here, it says laws of warfare. So we're going into the laws of warfare, okay? Yes, you do have laws of warfare because remember, the Lord deals with order. You can't just go out to war not knowing what the hell to do, not having officers and priests and a hierarchy set up within your army. You need to have a stabilized army that's in order for you to win battles, right? The military, the Marines, the Army, they're all in order, man. Everybody plays their part and they know who's over them, right? The lieutenants, the generals, right? The captains, etc. There is a hierarchy. So the same thing with Israel, man. We're not some barbaric, uncivilized people that just go out and just fight, man. We have order because the Lord, he deals with order. All right. The Lord, he deals with order. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. It says, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies. Remember, these enemies it's really talking about the other nations, right? Because let's go to Nehemiah 5 and 9. All right. Because remember, the Lord is speaking to Israel, right? Let's go to that real quick. The Lord, let's see who the Lord is talking to, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse 1. Because it says, when thou means you, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies. Let's see who the Lord is talking to. Deuteronomy chapter 29 and verse 1. These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. So the Lord is talking and speaking to the children of Israel, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 1, right, in verse 1, right? Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel on this side Jordan in the wilderness. See, so these are the words in Deuteronomy. These are the words which the Lord by Moses spake unto the people of Israel. So when it says, when thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, this is talking about Israel. When Israel is going out to war against their enemies, let's see who their enemies are. Let's go to Nehemiah 5 and 9. Remember, there are two types of enemies. But in this case, it's just one, right? In this case, thine enemies is talking about the other nations, right? Let's go to Nehemiah 5 and 9. All right, so let's see who our enemies are as a nation. This is the book of Nehemiah, chapter 5 and verse number 9. All right, it says, also I said, it is not good that ye do, ought ye not to walk in the fear of our God, because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies. See that? Because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies. So Nehemiah identified the heathen with being our enemies. Okay. So when it says, when thou goes forth to battle against thine enemies, this is talking about when we're going forth to battle against the other nations, right? And seest horses and chariots and a people more than thou, right? So sometimes their army might outnumber ours, right? They have horses, they got chariots, and people, just masses and masses of people, right? With them, a whole multitude, a sea of people, right? A people more than thou. The Lord said, what? Be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy God is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So the Lord said, hey, don't be afraid of that, because the Lord is with you. The Lord is going to fight for you, right? And the Lord brought you out of the land of Egypt. You know, that was an act of war. Because remember, when the Lord was bringing his people out of Egypt, hey, he spoiled the Egyptians. He killed their firstborn. He sent the 10 plagues upon them and then delivered his people out, right? When he split the Red Sea by the hand of Moses, right, or he used Moses to do that, right, on a carnal level, hey, guess what? The Egyptians were following them, and they got caught up into that in that Red Sea. You know, they were drowned in the Red Sea. So the Lord, he fought for us even when we were being brought out of Egypt. So that's why the Lord is also saying, look, hey, I'm the Lord thy God. Hey, I'm with you, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. I even brought you out of Egypt, man. So remember that. Remember my mighty acts that I did, you know. So the Lord, he's saying, look, don't be afraid of them, right? Because let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. All right. Let's go to 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. And it reads, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So the Lord, he didn't give us a spirit of fear, right? That's not what the Lord gave us. He gave us a spirit of what? Power and of love and of a sound mind. So we shouldn't be fearful in our hearts, right? We shouldn't, because we know that if, hey, guess what? If we're righteous, the Lord is with us to deliver us, right? So it doesn't matter about how many chariots you got, all this other stuff, right? Hey, that doesn't matter to the Lord, right? That doesn't matter to the Lord about how many chariots you have, right? If you have the best men, the most valiant men, it's up to the Lord whether or not that battle is going to prosper, right? Because the Lord, he controls all that stuff, right? He controls all that stuff. He controls every battle, right? Every decision that a general makes. Hey, that's the Lord right there. Okay? Right? That is the Lord. So let's get an example of that. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 9. All right? Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 9. In fact, I'm gonna just read it like this, right? It says second, so I can see the chat, right? 2 Chronicles chapter 14 verse 9. And there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian with an host of 1,000 and 300 chariots, and came unto Marashah, right? So Zerah the Ethiopian, he came with 1,000 men, right? 1,000. What is 1,000? That's talking about 1,000,000 people. He came with 1,000,000 people. And even if that's an exaggeration, a hyperbole, guess what? That's still a lot of people, more than Israel's army, right? It outnumbered our army, because that's what a host is. It says with an host of 1,000. A host is an army, right? And 300 chariots. He had 300 chariots. That's the equivalent of having 300 tanks, man. Right? Imagine having 300 tanks. 300 tanks coming at you and towards your army. That is frightening. That is scary, because a tank is a pretty destructive thing. Now, they didn't have tanks back then. They had chariots. You see that? So the chariots is like your modern day Jeeps and tanks, right? Verse 10, 2 Chronicles chapter 14, verse 10. Then Asa went out against him, and they set in the battle in array in the valley of Zephathah at Mashrah. So Asa was a king during this time, right? And Asa cried unto the Lord his God and said, Lord, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. O Lord, thou art our God. Let no man prevail against thee. So the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. You see that? And check that out. Check out that phraseology in verse 12. It says, so the Lord smote the Egyptians before Asa. Yes, Asa and his army, they took down the army of the Ethiopians. But really, it was the Lord that did that. Right? Let's get that in the book of Exodus chapter 14 and verse 14. Remember, we have to understand that the Lord is in charge of all this stuff. Right? The Lord is in charge of all this stuff. Me making this video is not really me, right? I'm just a vessel. It's the Lord putting that spirit in me. You see that? That's why it says the Lord smote the Egyptians. Or it's like the Lord smote the Ethiopians, you know? But Asa, right? Asa and his army was the actual ones, you know, that were in the battle. But ultimately, it was the Lord because he does all things, right? Let's go to Exodus chapter 14 and verse 14. It says, the Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. That's plain. The Lord is going to fight for you, right? And that is the Lord fighting for us, you know, when we go out to war and we prevail against our enemies. In that situation, it's like 2 Chronicles 14. And in in all the situations, really in 1 Maccabees, 2 Maccabees, you know, when Judas Maccabeus and his army, when they were prevailing against the heathen and winning, even though they had a stronger army, even though they had the mightiest men, and they were just few, right? When you read the narratives in 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees, if you haven't read that, you don't read it on your own, you know? Literally, they put their trust in the Lord, and the Lord delivered them, right? So I'm going to read that again, Exodus 14 to verse 14. The Lord shall fight for you, and he shall hold your peace. You see? All right? So it's the Lord really that's fighting for us, man. All right, so let's go back to that in Deuteronomy chapter 20. Right? Let's go back to that in Deuteronomy chapter 20. In verse 1, right? When thou goest forth out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, and the people more than thou, right? So like you, be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy God is with thee, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, right? And it shall be when ye are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people. So when we're nigh unto the battle, right? Because remember, you talk in the scriptures, it talks about, you know, the Israelites setting up camp, right? Now the camp, right? Let's look up the word camp. You might be thinking about, you know, camp, you know, brothers go out and teach. We call it a camp, but let's look up the actual definition of what a camp is. You understand? Right? So camp, right? A place with temporary accommodations of huts, tents, or other structures typically used by soldiers, refugees, prisoners, or travelers. So that's what a camp really is. It's a place of accommodation, temporary accommodations, right? So a place of a temporal, you know, residing for, especially used by soldiers. You see that? By soldiers. So really, when we're out, you know, in the camp, right? In the ancient world, we're in the battle, right? We're setting up a battle against another nation, right? The priest is going to come up onto us, right? What is he going to say? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 3, right? Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 3. It says, and shall say unto them, hear, O Israel, your approach this day unto battle against your enemies. You approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrified because of them. You see that? Don't be afraid. And basically, and let me read verse 4, right? For the Lord your God is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So what is this? What is the priest doing here? Right? He's coming up onto us before the battle. Before we go out to war, we might die. We may never see our family again, right? We may never go back home to our wife and our kids, right? So what is the priest doing here? He's coming up before us before we go out to war, right? The priest is giving a motivational speech. He's hyping us up. He's putting confidence in us. He's strengthening his brethren. He's strengthening the weak and feeble knees, right? Because remember, when you go out to war, that stuff is nerve-wracking, you know? People get nervous when they go out to fight because they know that literally they can die, right? Hey, it's normal to be nervous when you die because that's something you don't know, right? That's something that you haven't, experienced before, right? Death, you see that? Of your own life, taking your own life, fighting out to war, right? Knowing that you could lose everything, So and also that the weight, the prosperity and the life of your women, your children, your houses, your cattle, everything that you possess is on you now. Because if you don't win that battle, guess what? The enemy, they might just come up to your land and take everything. So the prosperity and the life of your nation, it relies on the soldiers in that time. You see that? But it says what? I'm reading verse 3 again. It says, and shall say unto them, hear, O Israel, you approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, right? Neither be afraid because of them. So we can't be afraid, right? We cannot be afraid. Why? Because it says, for the Lord your God is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. You see that? So now, when we go out to fight, look, we can't trust in our bow. We can't trust in our own strength, in our own brute strength, because that's what the heathen do. And that's what men that don't have any understanding, that's what they do too. They trust in their chariots. They trust in how many horses they have. They trust, in the mighty men that they have. They trust in their sword. We can't do that, right? We have to trust in the Lord, AHBAYAH, Shema Mashak Yahushua, because he's actually the one that's fighting for us. Let's go to Psalm chapter 44, verse 6. Psalm chapter 44, verse 6. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. That's plain. I would not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. So we can't let our fear, right, get the hold of us, and now we're trusting in vain things. Now we're trusting in materialistic things, right? We have to be trusting in AHBAYAH, Shema Mashak Yahushua. Right? I'm gonna read that again. Psalm chapter 44, verse 6. For I will not trust in my bow, neither shall my sword save me. Right? So we can't trust in our bow. All right, let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 20, verse 7. All right. This is a book of Psalms, chapter 20, and verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. So there's some that trust in chariots. There's some that trust in horsemen, right? And these are vain men, right? But we're going to remember the name of the Lord, right? Our God. And God forbid we ever rely on something else. But the thing is, right? It says, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Your name also carries your reputation, right? So when we think upon the name of Yahweh, we also think about all the good stuff and all the works that the Most High God has done for us to deliver us. You see that? So it says some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. We're going to remember that the Lord brought us out of Egypt. We're going to remember that the Lord smote the Ethiopians. 2 Chronicles chapter 14, right? But before Asa, we're going to remember that the Lord delivered Judas Maccabeus and his men from the dirty Edomites that were trying to take our land, right? During the Hasmonean dynasty, right, of Israel, right? So Khan, all right? But going back to this in Deuteronomy chapter 20, it's like hold on, right? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 42. Let's get some more precepts on that. All right, this is the book of Isaiah chapter 42, and verse 13. Right? Isaiah chapter 42 and verse 13. The Lord shall go forth as a mighty man. He shall stir up jealousy like a man of war. He shall cry, yea, roar. He shall prevail against his enemies. You see that? So it even says that the Lord is going to go ahead and fight, man. Right? And that goes into a multitude. That scripture is fourfold, man, threefold. Right? That goes into a lot of stuff. But even the Lord says that he's going to go out to fight. You see that? Right? So So we can't trust. So the moral of it is that we can't trust in our own bow. We can't trust in our how many swords we have and how many shields we have and how much gold we have, thinking that really is going to deliver us from the battle. Thinking that that's going to deliver us from death. No, it's not. We have to rely on Yahweh. We have to put our trust in him and not all that other stuff, because all that other stuff could fail. There's plenty of times when larger armies should have won against a smaller army, but they got the asses whooped. You know? For example, a mighty example is the Persian and Median army. They came up against the Greeks, against Alexander the Great, so-called Great, right? Alexander the so-called Great fought in the Battle of Gaugamela, right? I believe in 330 BC, right? He fought Darius. He fought Darius III, and Darius III lost. They lost the battle. They had like 1 million people even. That's what ancient scholars will tell you. They had like 1 million people, but they still lost, man. They had elephants and everything. All this other stuff. They had chariots, but they still lost against Alexander. Because why? The Lord, he's the one that's in charge of the battle. And Shalom, servant of the Most High, man. All right, Shalom, Shalom. Right? And Shalom, Benjamin Young Wolf. Right? Call on Allah, Yahweh Ba, Shimon Mashak Yahweh Ba, Shimon Mashak. All right? So, going back to this in Deuteronomy chapter 20. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4, for the Lord your God is he that goeth with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So, that's actually the Lord fighting for us. Remember, in verses 3 through 4, it's a motivational speech. It's a hyping up speech, because you're about to go to war. So you got to get hyped up, man. You can't, before you go to war, you can't listen to some damn classical music, some damn Beethoven and some damn Mozart before you go out to war. You can't listen to I don't know, like some damn depressing music when you go out to war. You're not going to be in the right spirit. Even with footballers, before they go out to the football field is not even war, man. None of y'all are going to die, right? Y'all just bumping heads and stuff, throwing a damn ball across the field, right? Even when footballers, man, before they go out to the field in the game, what do? They start hyping each other up, right? Start huddling up and start hyping each other up, playing the music and stuff. You're playing the music that's going to hype them up. They're not listening 5 minutes before the game. They're not listening to some damn classical music. They're not listening to some jazz. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to when the coach gives out the speech, the coaches, they also give out speeches before, a race. That's even for track. That's for track. That's for any sport. The coach will come out and, give a speech, motivational speech that will kind of put that spirit in you to work and to do your best. So they're doing the same thing here. It's found here, right here in Deuteronomy chapter 20, right? The priest is giving the comforting words unto the people of Israel, unto the army, right? Unto the host of the Lord, right? Let's get another example of that in the book of 2 Maccabees, chapter 15, right? 2 Maccabees, chapter 15, okay, in verse 7. I'm going to start at verse 6. So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. So Nicanor, you can read this on your own, but Nicanor was Edomite, and he fought against Judas Maccabeus, right? But Judas Maccabeus, even in this chapter, he cut off his head, man, right? Verse 7. But Maccabeus had ever sure confidence that the Lord would help him. You see that? So Judas Maccabeus, he always knew that, hey, and the Lord got me, man. That's what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 4, that the Lord is really fighting for us. So he had confidence in the Lord. We should have that same thing, right? Verse 8. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them. So he exhorted his people. That is a form of exhortation in Exodus, in Deuteronomy chapter 20, right? That is a form of exhortation. Did not the Lord say in Hebrews 3:13, exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin? Paraphrasing, right? Hey, that's from the law, you know? That's found in 2nd Maccabees. That's found in 1st Maccabees, for us to be exhorting one another, you know? And we also got exhortation before going out to war, right? And, you know, knock on through the Spirit, right? Brother Naquam WFI, he sometimes before camp, he does, you know, before camp warnings. And that's also, you know, another form of exhortation before going out to spiritual warfare, you know, because we're also in a spiritual warfare too. We have to keep that in mind, right? We're in a spiritual warfare, right? So we also have to be exhorting one another, man, right? If we don't exhort one another, we're going to start, you know, why are we fighting here, right? What are we fighting again, right? If it's a soldier, you have to know, hey, a soldier that's going to be winning the war, he has to know what he's fighting for, man, right? That's just evident. But let's go to 2nd Maccabees 15:8 again. It says, wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty. So he said what? He said to expect the victory, right? He said to expect the victory. And plus, Judas Maccabeus was a Levite. He's doing the same. He's keeping the commandments. He's keeping the law. He's exhorting his people before going out to war. You see that? Verse 9. And so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they won afore, he made them more cheerful. And when he had stirred up their minds, you see that? So Judas Maccabeus was stirring up their minds. And that's what in Deuteronomy chapter 20, when the priest is giving us that speech before going out to war, he's stirring up our minds, getting our mind right. You know, because being a soldier, it takes you to endure also in the spirit, but also mentally. You have to be hard physically, meaning you have to be strong physically, but also mentally too, and spiritually, right? Because in battle, you see some cruel stuff, man. You know, in battle, you see some cruel stuff. People have went to war, came back crazy, PTSD, suffering from nightmares, all this other stuff. Because they see some crazy stuff there, right? And it was the same thing in the ancient world, right? Verse 10, and when he had stirred up their minds, he gave them their charge, showing them therewithal the falsehood of the heathen and the breach of others. You see that? Let's get another example real quick. Right, let's go to 1st Maccabees chapter 13. 1st Maccabees chapter 13 and verse 2. It says, now this is Simon, right? And saw that the people was in great trembling and fear, he went up to Jerusalem and gathered the people together. So he was gathering up the people, man, right? And this is Simon, who is the brother of Judas Maccabeus, him also being a Levite, and gave them exhortation. So this is also before, I believe this is, right? This is not before a battle, but it's just another example of a Levite, right? Giving exhortation to his people, right? And gave them exhortation, saying, ye yourselves know what great things I and my brother in my father's house have done for the Jews and the sanctuary, the battles also and troubles which we have seen. Because his family, right, the Maccabees, or basically Simon, right, his brothers and also his father, right, who was Matthias, right? They're the ones that really started the revolt against the Greeks during this time, because this is during the Greek captivity, first Maccabees, second Maccabees, and so they're really the ones that started that revolt and really issued in the Hasmonean dynasty. Okay, right? You can read that in first Maccabees chapter 1. All right, but it says what? Verse 4. By reason whereof all my brethren are slain for Israel's sake, and I am left alone. Now therefore be it far from me that I should spare mine own life in any time of trouble, for I am no better than my brethren. Doubtless I will avenge my nation in the sanctuary, and our wives and our children, for all the heathen are gathered to us of very malice. Here's the point, verse 7. Now as soon as the people heard these words, their spirit revived. So their spirit revived when they heard the words of Simon. You see that? So that's what we got to be doing too, right? We're the spiritual priests on the spiritual level. Those of us that's in this truth, we offer up spiritual sacrifices. You know, that's all throughout the scriptures. You know, let's let's get an example of that. If you're in this truth, you're a spiritual priest. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 18. It says, but I have with all and abound, I am full, having received of APTTTMH the things which were sent from you, an odor of a sweet smell, a sacrifice acceptable, well pleasing to the Most High. You see that? A sacrifice, right? So we're offering up spiritual sacrifices, right? We're offering up spiritual sacrifices, man, right? Being a priest. Fuck it, let me get the scripture. All right. Let me get this scripture. I believe this is 1 Corinthians, if I'm not mistaken. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter. All right. I'm gonna go to Romans, right? Let's go to Romans, man. It's a book of all right. You know what? That's all right. All right, that's all right. Oh, Sluck. Right, it's right here. All praise. It says Romans chapter 15, verse 16, that I should be the minister of Yahawashi Mahashiach to the Gentiles, ministering the gospel of the Most High, that the offering up of the Gentiles might be acceptable, being sanctified by the Holy Spirit. So we're offering up those spiritual sacrifices by what? Teaching, right? We're teaching also the heathen, and giving exhortation to our brethren and our sisters, right? That's also in this truth, you know. So, you know, you're the spiritual priest on the left, on Aslakia, on a spiritual level, if you're in this truth, you know. And so we have to be doing this law. We have to be keeping this law, giving each other exhortation, you know, and saying that, hey, the Lord, he got you. The Lord is going to fight for you, you know. So come. But this is also on a carnal level. All right. This is also on a carnal level. The priest literally would say this, you know, before war, right? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5. Moving on. It says, and the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is there that hath built a house and have not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicated. Right. So let's go to the Hebrew in Deuteronomy chapter 20. All right, let's go to the Hebrew. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 5. All right. For dedicate. All right. To train, dedicate, inaugurate. Okay.
Strong's H 2596. Chanach.
So it says to narrow figuratively, to initiate or discipline, dedicate, train up. So a lot of times in the ancient world, and I'll say, you know, in the ancient world and also in the biblical perspective, when we used to build things like buildings and houses and stuff like that, we would actually dedicated it. How? by throwing a celebration for it, right? A celebration. So let's get an example of that. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 13, okay? So Nehemiah chapter 13 verse 37, I believe, or 27. Okay, 27, right? Nehemiah 13 and verse 27. And at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem. So you see that? So let me pull it up on the screen, right? It says at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem. All right. So Nehemiah 12 and 27. Nehemiah 12 and 27. It says at the dedication, right? At the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought the Levites out of all their places to bring them to Jerusalem to keep the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgivings and with singing, with cymbals, psalteries, and with harps. You see that? So that's how they dedicated it. That's how they dedicated the wall of Jerusalem, right? After it was built. You see that? So let's go to Daniel. Let's get another example. Let's go to Daniel chapter 3. Daniel 3 and 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. So they all came for the dedication of the image. You see that? That Nebuchadnezzar set up that idol, right? So that's how they dedicated it, because all of them came up to it. They had a celebration. Even they had what? The music. You know, they brought the music there to dedicate the image, to dedicate that building that they made, that Nebuchadnezzar the king set up, right? So that's what that's going into, right? In Deuteronomy chapter 20, right? Where it says, a man that had not dedicated his house. All right, there was one more precept. Come, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 63. This is 1 Kings 8 and 63. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord, 22,000 oxen. He offered 22,000 oxen, right? And 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. So this is after the house of the Lord was already built. So they dedicated it by what? Offering up the oxen and the sheep, and they had basically they had a feast, a great congregation, right? It says verse 65, right? And at that time Solomon held a feast to what? Dedicate, right? The house of the Lord. And all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Egypt, before the Lord our God, 7 days and 7 days, even 14 days. Right? Okay, so that's what that means in Deuteronomy chapter 20, where it says to dedicate. Right? Let's just read it again. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse number 5. And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is there that hath built a new house? So if you build a new house, you want to dedicate it, right? We already went through the precepts, what that means, and have not dedicated it. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it, right? So you didn't want to, newly build your house, and you didn't have your dedication yet, and you didn't have your dedication. So, and then you go out to war and you die, and then another man comes, right? And he's going to dedicate your house instead of you. No, you should dedicate your own house. So those are a few exceptions of you not going out to war. Now, men that were years of 20 or older were allowed to go to war. I believe that's the numbers. If you're 20 and older, a man, then you were, you could go out to war. But there are a few exceptions of you being able, or you not being able to go. And here are the exceptions, right? Verses 5, right? Verse 5 says that if you have newly built your house and you haven't dedicated it, you got to go do that, right? Verse 6, and what man is he that hath planted a vineyard and hath not yet eaten of it? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle and another man eat of it. You see that? What man is he that hath planted a vineyard? So even if you planted a vineyard and you have not even eaten of it, right? You got to go do that, lest you die in battle and another man eats of your vineyard and you haven't even eaten it. You know, it's kind of, it's just right, kind of messed up, right? Verse 7, and what man is there that hath betrothed a wife and hath not taken her? So betrothed means to promise, or basically be engaged, right? Let's go to the word betrothed. It means promise, basically, engaged, right? Actually, we could just go to the Hebrew, I believe. There's a similar law, Deuteronomy 24 and 5. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse number 7. That have betrothed a wife, right? Alas. So it says to betroth.
Strong's H781. Aras.
Right, so to betroth, right? Engage. So if you were promised to a woman and you guys haven't, laid down together, hey, the Lord said, go do that before another man does that, right? Because it says, and what man is he that hath betrothed a wife and hath not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in battle and another man take her, right? You were promised to this woman. If there was a war going on and you haven't lain with her, right? Hey, go ahead and do so, man, right? Unless another man comes up, right, and you die in battle, another man comes up and he's going to take your place, So and this is also another law when you go to Deuteronomy chapter 20, or similar law in Deuteronomy chapter 24 and verse 5. It says, when a man have taken a new wife. So when you take a new wife, right, y'all are newly married, right, he shall not go out to war. So you can't go out to war, you couldn't, right? It says, neither shall he be charged with any business, but he shall be free at home 1 year and shall cheer up his new wife, which ye have taken. You see that? So he shall be free at home 1 year. That was the law. Okay? That was the law. If you were newly married, you couldn't go out to war for a whole year, right? Because you want to have time to be with your woman, right? Because that's how much the Lord values marriage. That's how much the Lord looks at marriage between a man and a woman as beautiful. That's here's a quick sidebar. Let's go to Sirach 25 and 1. Okay. Sirach chapter 25 verse 1. In 3 things I was beautified and stood up beautiful, both before God and men, the unity of brethren. So this is what the Most High loves. This, he thinks this is beautiful. Men also, and the Most High does as well. It says the unity of brethren. So the Lord, he loves the unity of brethren. The love of neighbors is basically the same thing. A man and a wife that agree together. So the Lord, he loves a man and a wife that agree together. He loves marriage. In fact, when you go to the book of Malachi, chapter, let's just see what it says. I don't want to scroll, right? Even when you go to the book of Malachi, the Lord said thus, right? Malachi chapter 2 and verse 16. For the Lord, the God of Israel, saith that he hateth putting away, right? So he hates putting away. He hates when a man and a woman, divorces, right? The Lord, he hates that, man. He loves it when they come together in unity and in love. So that's why also that law is in place, for you to cheer up your wife 1 year. You couldn't go out to battle, lest you die in the battle, and guess what? Another man can take your place. Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 8. And the officers shall speak further unto the people. Remember, so why does it say officers? Because you had order back in the ancient world. Okay, you had officers, right? Let's go to that in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 15. Deuteronomy chapter 1 and verse 15. And it reads, so I took the chief of your tribes, wise men. So not everybody can be an officer. You have to be chief of the tribe. Okay? Chief men. Not just some ordinary Jake with his pants hanging down to his ankles that has a Gucci belt on, but the pants is too big for him, right? Not some random Jake that's trying to get at every girl, right? Not the right? Not the Jake that's, he doesn't know any of the commandments, right? He doesn't go out to teach. He's not in this truth. He doesn't believe in Yahushua. The Lord, he's not apt to be an officer, right? Not everybody can be an officer. You have to be what? Chief of your tribes, wise men. You have to be a wise man because you're over certain Israelites. They do something wrong, they're really looking at you because you're over them, right? Wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, captains over 10s, and officers amongst your tribes. See that? So you had captains. You had captains, and you also had officers, right? So the Lord, he deals with order. Okay? That's what the Lord said in Corinthians 14 and 40, right? Let all things be done decently and in order, right? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 8. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, what man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Right? What man is there that's fearful and faint-hearted? Right? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart. Because guess what? Fear spreads like a disease. It spreads like the virus. One brother, let's say one brother is hella scared. Oh, damn, bro. They got hella, they got elephants. They got bows and arrows. They got silver swords. They got gold. They got gold armor. Bro, I don't know, man. All we got is this. We got bronze. I don't know. They got gold, right? And he's shivering. He's scared. Now he's going to say to the other brother, hey, let's just get out of here. Let's just leave. Because they got this, and that. They got this. I don't know. And so that other brother, he's going to pass on that virus, that sickness, which is fear. He's going to pass that fear to the other brother. And it's just going to keep going, right? Now all the army is just scared. Because they're thinking about the wrong things. You see that? They're forgetting that the Lord is on their side. They're forgetting that they are Israelites. That they have that their God is one true God. They're forgetting that. They're forgetting that the Lord controls the battle. I believe that's even the scripture as well, right? That the Lord, he's in control of that battle. They're forgetting that. But that fear, that's why the Lord said, and they shall say, what man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? If you fearful, get the hell out of here. That's what the Lord said. And that's the same thing when it comes to spiritual warfare as well, right? When we go out to camp, because when we go out to camp, it's spiritual warfare, right? Let's just get a precept on that, right? Did not the Lord say, be thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier, right? What do soldiers do, right? Do they cook lemonade? Do they cook pancakes and drink lemonade? Soldiers fight wars. That's their purpose. All right. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 3. It says, for though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. Because if spiritual warfare, yes, we fight the flesh. But in this case, what Paul is saying is we're not picking up guns and literally fighting, right? Literally fighting the Moabites right now, right? We're fighting spirits right now. You understand that? Right? We're fighting spiritual wickedness in high places. That's the spiritual warfare that's going on, right? Like it says in Ephesians 6 and verse 10 on that. For the weapons of our warfare, it's like in 2 Corinthians 10 and verse 4. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, right? They're not carnal. You know, we're not fighting with guns, AK-47s, AR-15s, M1 911s. I believe that's what it's called, right? We're not fighting with pistols and all this other stuff. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, right? It says, but mighty, they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So when we go out to teach and we do these videos, right, we're pulling down strongholds that's on our people: Christianity, Islam, you know, evolutionism, science, Esau's philosophy. We're trying to pull that down through the scriptures, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Mahashiach. You see that? So we besiege the city, just like how they did in the ancient world. We're going to go through that too. Just like how they did in the ancient world, we're going to besiege these cities, and we're going to besiege your mind, right? And break down the stronghold. Get in there and bring your thought under the obedience of Mahashiach. Bring every one of your thoughts, your vain thoughts and sinful thoughts, into the obedience of Mahashiach. Now you're in this truth. Now you're a slave for Yahushua, right? Now you're a prisoner of Yahushua. You understand? Right? Let's go to 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 3. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahushua Mahashiach. Soldiers fight wars. We're in a spiritual warfare. Verse 4. No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of his life, that he may please him who have chosen him to be a soldier. See that? So Paul is likening us in this truth, especially the men, to soldiers, because we are fighting in spiritual warfare. So that's why we can't be afraid either, you know. But let's go to Judges chapter 7, because this law in Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 8, right? You know, in Deuteronomy chapter 20 verse 8, even though it is carnal, but it's also a spiritual application as well. Let's get an example of when this law was actually applied in the scriptures. Okay? Because if you're scared, you know, you might as well just go home, right? Judges chapter 7 and verse 3. And it reads, Now therefore go to proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, Whosoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 20 and 2,000, and there remained 10,000. So 22,000 men, they left because they were scared. And there was only 10,000 men left. You see that in this account in Judges chapter 7. We have to ask ourselves, are we part of that number that left, you know, or that's going to leave because we're fearful, we're scared? No, we shouldn't be, you know. And if you're leaving the camp, hey, you know, you kind of looked at funny, because what the hell? Why are you scared? You know, we shouldn't be scared, right? So but it says, I'm gonna read that again, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 8. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart. So you don't want to spread that fear amongst the camp. Now all the army is afraid, and now guess what? They don't want to fight. Now all of them left. Hell no, that can't happen, man. Right? That's why if you're scared, right, we might as well just stay home. Verse 9. And it shall be, when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people. Captains of the armies to lead the people. And we got that in Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 15 as well, right? So you had captains that was going to lead the people, because that's what the Lord, he deals with order, right? He deals with order. Okay, let me just look at my notes, right? So now in verse 10, now we're going through the besieges. All right, now we're going through the besieges. All right, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 10. When thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. So yes, if we came up to a city, right, and was going to and we're looking to overthrow it, we first must have to proclaim peace to it. That's actually in the law. We can't just come up to it and start attacking it out of nowhere, blowing a trumpet, right? Unless the Lord, tells us otherwise. But we can't just come up to it and start attacking it, right? Burning it down, breaking down the walls and doing all this stuff. We have to actually proclaim peace unto it, right? It says what? And it shall be, if they make the answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be all that the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. Let's say they don't want the smoke. We came to a city, a heathen nation, right? And we proclaim peace to it, right? Y'all want peace, right? Hey, the Lord delivered us into your hands. Y'all want peace. And so if they say, hey, we don't want no smoke, whatever, y'all the Israelites, we understand that. Y'all, we understand the acts of your God, right? So we're not going to do anything. We're not even going to try to fight. It's cool, whatever. They're going to be tributaries unto us. What is a tributary? Somebody that brings tribute. Basically taxes, They'll bring a portion of their cattle to us. They'll bring a portion of their they'll bring a portion of Slovakia. This is my Wi-Fi is bad. Let's see how it is. Okay, so calm, right? So they'll bring portions of their goods to us. You see that? So calm. So when it says, when thou comest nigh to a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And it shall be, if they make thee an answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. Okay? So even when you read that in the book of Luke, they said, hey, does your master pay tribute to Caesar? And what was that tribute? It was a coin, right? It was taxes. And the Lord said, render unto Caesar's that are Caesar's, the things that be of Caesar's, and render unto God the things that be of God, right? Because, hey, guess what? The Lord is also taxing us too on a spiritual level. He's expecting taxes from us, right? Just as much as Esau, right? He's taxing us. And the Lord, he taxes too. I'm not sure why it says my internet's bad, right? Because it's looking good. It's looking good. So, okay. Verse Deuteronomy chapter 20. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 20. Right. And I'm going to get one example of that. Let's go to Judges chapter 18. This is the book of Judges chapter 18 and verse 27. Right. And they took the things which Micah had made, and the priests which he had made, which he had, and came unto Laish, unto a people that were at quiet and secure, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and burnt the city with fire. You see that? So they came, right? It says, and they took the things which Micah had made, and the priests which he had made, and came unto Laish. They came onto the city called Laish, right? Unto a people that were quiet and secure, and smote them with the edge of the sword. They just started fighting, and they didn't keep that commandment in Deuteronomy, right? They just started burning down the city, started taking down the city. But they were supposed to first proclaim peace unto it, to see if the city would say, hey, we don't want the smoke, right? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 12. And if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, then thou shalt besiege it. So if they be like, hey, we want the smoke, y'all not coming up in here, right? If they say that, then guess what? That's the green light. Then that's when you besiege it, right? Verse 13, and when the Lord thy God have delivered it into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. So you have to kill the males, right? You have to kill the males. All right, verse 14, but the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself, and thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. So when we besiege the cities, we can take the spoils. And guess what? What's part of the spoil? It says the little ones, children, the cattle, right? And all is in the city, the gold even, right? Even all the spoil thereof shalt thou take unto thyself. What is part of the spoil? In fact, what is first mentioned? Let's just share the screen, right? Not making it up. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 20. What is first mentioned? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 14. But the women. So women are also the spoils of war, right? They're also the spoils of war. And these are also heathen women as well, right? These are heathen women. He's not talking about Israelite women, right? An Israelite woman is not for a spoil when you take, let's say you're trying to take the city of Jerusalem, right? No, this is applicable. This is applied to the heathen nations, right? So you can literally take the women for yourself and the little ones and the cattle, all that is in the city for a spoil, right? Verse 15, right? And also, let's get an example of that. Okay, let's go to the book of Numbers 31. All right, let's go to Numbers chapter 31. Numbers chapter 31 and verse 9. It says, and the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods. And they burnt all their cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. See that? So when the children of Israel were fighting against the Midianites, right? They took the women captive. They took them for a spoil, the little ones, and the spoil of all their cattle and all their flocks and all their goods. So they were taking all that. And guess what? The women is actually part of that spoil as well. All right. The women is also part of that spoil as well. Oh, Slack, I wasn't even sharing my screen. All right. Hold on. Let me share my screen real quick. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 14. See that? It says, but the women, right there. All right. It says the women. So women are part of that spoil. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. See that? So if you're going to war against another nation, and you see in the nation a beautiful woman, you want her to be your wife, you can take her. You can take her in. Right, and there's something there. She'll have to be following the laws, statutes, commandments. Right, you have to also follow certain rules and regulation about her, but she'll be your wife, just your lesser wife, your concubine. You see that? But that's allowed in the scriptures. All right, let's go going back. Right, Deuteronomy chapter 20 and verse 15. It says, thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not the cities of these nations. What is these nations talking about? These nations is talking about what? It's talking about the Canaanitish nations. All right? Because with them is a little different. All right, let's go to verse 16. It says, but of the cities of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save nothing. It says, it's like thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. The Lord said, kill everything when you go into the land of Canaan. right? Kill every save. Thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, right? Verse 17. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. The Lord commanded us to kill these nations off, right? The Lord commanded us to destroy these nations, right? The Lord commanded us to do that. Okay, let's get an example. Let's go to Joshua chapter 10 and verse 40. Okay, let's go to Joshua chapter 10 and verse 40. And it reads, So Joshua smote all the country of the hills and of the south and of the valley and of the springs and all their kings. He left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord God of Israel commanded. Destroyed everything that was breathing, man. Right? You see that? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 18. And you can read that a lot when you read about the conquest of Canaan in the book of Joshua. Right? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 18. That they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods, so shall ye sin against the Lord your God. Right? That's why you had to kill them all, so that you wouldn't be enticed to follow after their ways, which Israel eventually did. Right? Verse 19. When thou shalt besiege a city a long time, and making war against it to take it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them, for thou mayest eat of them, and thou shalt not cut them down. For the tree of life for the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege. You see that? So when we're besieging a city, remember all these laws, they make sense. All these laws, they make sense, and therefore your benefit. So when we're making war against a city and we're besieging the city, trying to take the city down, right, and invade it, and ultimately, right, take it down, right, and making war against it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing the axe against them. Let's say there was a tree in the way, we can't chop it down. The only type of trees that we can chop down is what? Verse 20. Only the trees which thou knowest that they be not trees for meat. So we know if there's an apple tree right next to the city, you can't cut that down. You have to use that to eat. Right? The Lord said, look, don't chop that tree down. Only the trees that you know don't bear any fruit, cut those down. Right? Thou shalt destroy and cut them down, and thou shalt build bulwarks against the city that maketh war with thee until it be subdued. Right? And let's look up what bulwark means. Right? And a bulwark is a defensive wall. Right? Okay. Let's go into the Hebrew. Right? For bulwarks right there. All right. It says siege enclosure, siege, entrenchment, siege works. Right? The rampart. All right. So, and that makes sense. And that law is actually in there. You see that? So this is going into, laws of besieging, laws of going to war, man. Right? And all this also has a spiritual application as well. Right? It also has a spiritual application as well. Not all the laws just, this and that and that and that. Right? Just plain and simple. Yes, the law is simple. Right? And the Lord made it to be simple like that on purpose. All right? So that we wouldn't have excuses not knowing and understanding what the law meant. Okay? For one reason. All right, but yeah, that's basically plain and simple. Deuteronomy 20 is not that deep. Okay. Lord willing, this is edifying, right? Lord willing, brothers and sisters was, kind of edified on basically the laws of going to war, laws of besieging, and all that other stuff, man. Right? All praise to Yahweh Baha Shema Mashak Wamalak Yahweh Shah. Right? So with that, Kwam Yasharala closing out. Kwam Yasharala, Shabbat Shalom. Right to the 12 tribes of Yasharala. It's brother Yasharala. Right? Khan. Shalom.